Welcome to the video tutorial for the crossing over hat. I've made this in loving memory of my mom, who passed away last year of Alzheimer's disease. This hat looks beautiful made in multicolor, which is what we'll be doing today in this tutorial, but also looks very nice in a solid. The materials we'll be using are 4-ounce yarn. I'll be using 3 colors, a 6.0 or 6.5 millimeter hook, a 5.0 or 5.5 millimeter hook, and scissors. The yarns I'm using today are all from Red Heart, a Red Heart Super Saver in Shocking Pink Rose, a Red Heart Love in Pewter, and a Red Heart Love in White. The stitches we're using are all extremely simple stitches, but I'm going to be introducing a new stitch that I'm calling the crossover stitch. We'll be sure to go over that in detail when the time comes. If you're ready, let's begin. Okay, to begin our hat, I'm using a 6.0 millimeter hook. I've got a slip knot, and today I'm using a Red Heart yarn in, I think it's called like Super Bright Rose or something like that. And since I was making this in memory of my mom, this was one of her very favorite colors. So we're going to use this color predominantly, plus a white and a gray. So this hat's made top down. So to start our crown, all we do is chain 5, 3, 4, 5. Then we take our hook, put it in that first chain, grab your yarn, pull it through, do a little slip knot and a chain 1. Now grab it on each side and sort of pull it apart. This opening here in the center is what we're going to work this first row in to start our crown. So when I come back for row 1, this is where we're going to work. So see you for that. Okay, we're going to be working in increases of 10 using a double crochet. So for this first row, we're going to put 10 double crochets right into that opening that I showed you just a second ago. So right off the bat, 10 double crochets into that opening that we made with our chain when we made that little loop. Now, I know a lot of you are super familiar with how to do these increases, and if you want to skip forward to the body of the hat, that's absolutely fine, but stop when you get to a stitch count of 60 because we're going to switch it up a little bit before we go on to 70. But for those of you who are going to follow along with me, put 10 double crochets into this middle opening that I showed you. And when we get to the end, I'll show you how on this and every row we're going to slip stitch to join. So 10 double crochets into this middle, and then I'll bring you back at the end and show you how we're going to slip stitch to join. Okay, here's my 10 double crochets done in that middle hole. So for this and every single row on this hat, when we get to the end, we're going to slip stitch to join in our first stitch. So in this first double crochet. A lot of times you slip stitch to join in a chain or something, but every time we're going to slip stitch to join in the first stitch. And now you can take this tail here and give it a little pull, and it closes that hole up pretty well, so you don't have a hole in the top of your hat. So there's row 1, and I'll see you for row 2. Okay, for row 2, I've already chained 1. All we're going to do is place 2 double crochets in each of these 10 stitches around. Now we'll always start in that same stitch where you slip stitch to join, and that'll keep our stitch count right. So 2 double crochets in the same stitch, and do that all the way around. And at the end, you'll have 20 stitches. So go right back into that same stitch and place a second double crochet. So I've got 2 double crochets in the first stitch, 2 in the second, and we'll place 2 in every stitch around. When you get to the end, slip stitch to join in this first double crochet, chain 1, and we'll go on to row 3. Okay, here's my 20 stitches. On row 3, we'll increase it to 30 stitches. So once again, we'll place 2 double crochets in this first stitch, the same one where you slip stitch to join. Go right back into that same stitch and place a second double crochet like that. So we have 2 there. The next stitch, we just do 1 double crochet. And that's what we'll do all the way around. We'll do 2 double crochets in the next stitch. 1, go right back into that same stitch and do 2. And then we do 1 in the next stitch. And that'll be our stitch sequence for this row. 2 in the first stitch, then 1. 2 in the next stitch, then 1. All the way around. 2, 1, 2, 1. All the way around. Slip stitch to join in this first double crochet. When you get to the end, you'll have 30 stitches. And I'll see you for row 4. Okay, for row 4, we're going to continue with our increases, and we're going to start the same way we've been starting, with 2 double crochets in this first stitch. 1 and 2 in that very first stitch. But on row 4, we'll place 1 double crochet in the next 2 stitches. So 1 there, and then 1 there. And that'll be our sequence for row 4. Put 2 double crochets in the first stitch, 1 double crochet in the next 2 stitches, and we'll do that all the way around. 2 in the next stitch, 1 and 2, and then 1 double crochet in the next 2 stitches. Oops, oops, oops. 1 and 1. We'll do that all the way around. 2 double crochets in the next stitch, followed by 1, 1. 2 double crochets, 1, 1. All the way around. You'll have 40 at the end of this row. Slip stitch to join, chain 1, and then we'll just have 2 more rows of this type of increase. Okay, row 5, we have 2 more rows of increase like this. You've probably figured out how this increase thing works. 2 in the first stitch like we've been doing, and now 1 double crochet in the next 3 stitches. So each time we just increase the number of stitches that we just put 1 double crochet in, and that's how we get our increases. So 2 double crochets in the first stitch, and then followed by 1 double crochet in the next 3 stitches. Do that all the way around. We'll put 2 double crochets in the next stitch, then 1, 1, 1. 2 double crochets, 1, 1, 1, all the way around. We'll have 50 at the end of this row, and then row 6 will be our last row of increase for a minute before we go on to something else. But do this all the way around. 2 followed by 1, 1, 1. Slip stitch to join in this first double crochet, chain 1, and I'll pick you up for row 6. Okay, we're on row 6, which will be our last row of increase using these double crochets. And we'll start like we have been with 2 double crochets in the first stitch, 1 and 2 in that same stitch. And then we place 1 double crochet in the next 4 stitches. So 2 in the first and 1 double crochet in the next 4 stitches. And that'll be our sequence for this row number 6. At the end of this row, you'll have 60 stitches. So again, you have 2 double crochets in the first stitch, 1 double crochet in the next 4. Do that all the way around. When you get to the end, if you're following my pattern that had the stripes, we'll be changing colors. So I'm going to pick you up at the end of this row to show you how I'm going to change my colors. So 2 double crochets in the first stitch, 1 double crochet in the next 4. Do that all the way around. I'll pick you up at the end, and we'll change colors to move on to row 7. See you then. Okay, I'm at the end of row 6, and like I said, for those of y'all who are following along with my striped pattern, we're going to be changing colors here. So I've got 2 more single crochets to end my row, so that's 59 and 60. So now I'm going to change to my gray. And how I do that, everybody's got their own way. I go into my first double crochet like I'm going to slip stitch to join like we always do. But I'm going to grab my gray yarn, hold it with my hook, pull it through that stitch, pull it through that stitch, kind of pull it tight, and then secure it like that. So now I've changed colors. So if you're not changing colors, go ahead and just do a regular slip stitch to join and a chain 1. So that's the end of row 6. We have our 60 stitches. We're going to do 1 row of single crochet with our gray. We're going to change colors again if you're following along with me and start with our crossover stitch, which the hat is named for. So I'll see you for row 7. Okay, we're on row 7. I've switched to my gray, which is a Red Heart Love in pewter. Now this will be a super simple row. All we're going to do is place 1 single crochet in each stitch around. So we're going to keep our stitch count at 60 for a couple of more rows before we go up to 70. So super simple row, 1 single crochet in each of your 60 stitches around. When you get to the end, if you're following along with me, we're going to change colors again to a white or whatever color you're changing to, but I'm going to change to white. So single crochet, each stitch around. When we get ready to slip stitch to join, I'm going to go ahead and switch to my white color for our crossover row. So I'll see you for the beginning of that. Okay, so for row 8, I've switched to white, and it's also a Red Heart Love yarn, and I really enjoy working with that kind of yarn. So this is going to be the first of our crossover stitch rows, and it's a beautiful stitch, and I was just messing around trying to come up with something in memory of my mom to make this hat, and I did this stitch, and it kind of hugs the stitches, and that reminded me of my mom. So that's why I called it the crossover, because it kind of hugs, it kind of crosses over, and since my mom has passed away, I thought that was appropriate. So let me show you how that stitch is done. Now normally we start in this stitch here where we have slip stitched to join. We're going to skip that for now but come back to it. So in the next stitch, the next 3 stitches actually, we're going to place 1 double crochet. Skip that first one that we normally start in where you slip stitch to join, and in the next 3 do a regular double crochet like that. Okay, this is a little bit more hard to see because you got your little chain right there, but this is the stitch that we skipped before. That's what we're going to be working into. So to do my crossover stitch, you yarn over, you go into that skip stitch from the front to the back, grab your yarn, pull it up to the height of those other double crochets, and finish off your double crochet. So it crosses over. After we do that, we skip the next stitch, not this one, that's got the double crochet in it. Skip the next empty stitch and do it again. This one will be easier, it'll be easier to see. So after we skip a stitch, we do 3 more double crochets, 1 in the next 3 stitches, like that. Now here's our skip stitch right here in front of the beginning of our double crochets. We're going to work into that. Yarn over, take your hook, put it through that skip stitch, grab your yarn from the back, pull it up to the height of your double crochets, and finish working a double crochet. Can you see how it sort of crosses over? It just hugs those. And that's what it reminded me of Mom, because she liked hugs. So this reminds me of hugs, and hugs reminds me of Mom, and that's where this came from. So we'll do this all the way around. I'll show you one more time. Skip that stitch, 3 double crochets, one in the next 3 stitches. It really is a simple stitch once you get used to it. It feels a little awkward at first going back and grabbing that skip stitch, but it's really not that hard. Here's our skip stitch. Yarn over, insert your hook into that skip stitch, grab your yarn, pull it up, work your double crochet. So we're going to be working this all the way around. Skip that next stitch, 3 double crochets, work your crossover, skip a stitch, and do it again. Now when we get back to the end of this row, if you're following along with my colors, we're going to be changing again. So I'll pick you up here at the end to show you how this row ends, and we'll change colors back to this gray. So I'll see you for that. Okay, I'm coming to the end of row 8, which was our first row of this crossover stitch. So we have all of our little hugs all the way around. So I wanted to show you how we're going to end this row. I have 4 stitches left. We skipped that one. That's our skip stitch. So in these last 3 stitches, we'll place our double crochets. So 1, 2, and 3. That's our last stitch of this row. So here's our skip stitch. Yarn over, go into that skip stitch, grab your yarn, pull it through and up, work your double crochet. So now we're at the end. There's nothing to skip. We're at the end. So if you're doing a solid color, go ahead and slip stitch to join in this first double crochet. But if you're following along with me, I'm switching back to gray for this next row. So I go into my first double crochet like we always do. Grab my new yarn, pull it through, kind of grab everything, pull it tight. And which one's my yarn? And then go ahead and chain to kind of secure that. Now once I clip this, I'm going to tie my loose ends together at the back to close that gap if you want to do that. But I wanted to say a little bit more about this stitch. After I had made this pattern and did this crossover stitch, I was looking around and I did see something similar, and actually it was on the Red Heart web page. It was a similar stitch called the cross cable stitch, but it's not this stitch. It's different. I think it only used 2 double crochets, and I think part of it was worked in a front loop or something. It was similar, but a lot different. So I'm calling this my crossover stitch. We'll be working this row of crossover, I think, 3 more times. So anyway, I've ended my row with switching colors. We're getting ready to start row 9, and I'll see you for that. Okay, we're on row 9. I've switched back to gray, and we finished our crossover stitch row. So up until here, the last couple of rows, we've been working with a stitch count of 60. Now we're going to get up to 70. So we're going to do 1 more row of increase, but using single crochet instead of double. So to do this last row of increase, do 2 single crochets in your first stitch, like that. Then do 1 single crochet in the next 5 stitches. So 2 in the first, and then 1 single crochet in the next 5 stitches. So this is 3, 4, and 5. Then we'll repeat that. We'll do 2 single crochets in this next stitch. 1, go right back in that same stitch, place a second single crochet, and then 1 single crochet in the next 5. We'll do that all the way around. At the end, we'll have 70 stitches, and we'll keep that for the remainder of the hat. Now, I'm going to change colors again when I get back to the end, because we're going to do a stripe of gray, then the pink, then the gray again, before we go back to here. So when you get back to the end, if you're doing a solid color, just slip stitch to join, and I'll pick you up for the next row. If you're following along with my colors, when you get to the end and slip stitch to join it with this pink that we started off with. and I'll pick you up for the next row of that. Okay, row 10, I've switched back to pink. I wanted to show you on the finished hat where we're at. So here's our crown. This was that first row of gray that we did, and then our crossover stitch. We just did this row of single crochet, which increased us to 70. Now I'm on this row of pink here. So this pink and this gray are both going to be just single crochet rows. So I just wanted to give you a little visual as to where we're at. So these next two rows, rows 10 and 11, super simple. We're just going to place one single crochet in each stitch around. We're through with our increases. We should have 70 stitches. So one row of single crochet all the way around, slip stitch to join at the end. I'm going to be changing back to gray just to complete my stripe color sequence. If you're doing a solid color, just slip stitch to join. And then the next row will be the same thing, single crochet each stitch around. So 70 stitches, single crochet, slip stitch to join here. If you're changing colors with me, I'm going back to gray for the next row. So you'll change colors here, and then I'll pick you up for row 11 too. It's going to be the same thing, but I'll pick you up anyway. So single crochet all the way around, slip stitch to join, change colors if you're changing with me, and I'll see you for row 11. Okay, real quick, I just wanted to show you row 11 where I have switched back to gray. And again, just to show you where we're at, we're doing these rows here of the gray, pink, gray stripe in between our crossover stitches. So we just finished this pink and now we're doing this gray right here. So this is row 11, super simple. Once again, we're just going to place one single crochet in each stitch around. Again, we're at 70 stitches now that we had our prior increase. So super simple, one single crochet, each of these 70 stitches around. Now when we finish this row, we're going to go back to our white to do our crossover stitch row. So single crochet for each stitch around for row 11, slip stitch to join. If you're following my color changes, I'm changing back to white to do my crossover. Single crochet all the way around, slip stitch to join, chain one, and we'll go from there. Okay, we're on row 12. We're going to do another crossover stitch row, so I've switched back to white. Now, last time we did this row, we only had 60 stitches, and this time we have 70. So we're going to start the same, but we're going to end a little bit differently. So we're going to skip this stitch where we slip stitch to join, and in the next stitch, the first like real stitch, I guess, we're going to start our sequence, which is the 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Oops. 3. Now, like we did before, just kind of pull that chain apart. We're going to slip stitch to join in that first stitch where we normally start. So, grab your yarn, pull it up and around, and finish off your single crochet. So that's the same way we started it before. Skip this stitch, do it again. We'll do this all the way around. I'll show you a couple more times. We will end the row a little differently just because our stitch count was different. So I'll be sure and pick you up at the end. But you skip the next stitch, do your 3 double crochets, wrap your yarn around, work into that stitch that you skipped right there, pull it up. It's probably getting easier for you since you've done it for a whole row. So that's what we're going to do all the way around. Again, we'll end the row a little differently, but I'll show you that. I wanted to say a little bit more about my mom since this hat is 100% for her. Like I said, she had Alzheimer's. She was diagnosed when she was in her late 70s, I guess, and Mom had always been just super healthy, in great shape. Excuse me. She ate well. She exercised regularly. She was a mall walker. I just never thought she would get Alzheimer's, but she did. And a couple of years after her diagnosis, we're going to skip this next stitch, do it again. A couple of years after her diagnosis, we decided to move both of my parents in with us because it was really getting too much for my dad. And it just ended up being a blessing for all of us to be living here together. But when I was growing up, and this was 100 years ago, back in the mid to late 60s, Mom would crochet. And she, back then, would crochet vests and either give them to her friends or sell them or whatever. It was just kind of a style at the time. I'm skipping this stitch and doing it again. And she always wanted me to learn how to crochet so I could crochet with her. I kind of knew how to knit, but I just could not figure out how to crochet. I couldn't hold the needle right. I probably still don't. My hook couldn't hold the yarn right. And I just never could learn how. So once we moved him in with us, if any of y'all have experienced Alzheimer's with a parent, with a spouse, with a loved one, you know that it's not easy. It is 24/7 every day of the week. It takes a lot out of you. So I thought this is a good time for me to pick crochet up just as a stress reliever and just to kind of take my mind off of things, because I won't lie to you, it was difficult. So I did. I watched YouTube videos and I taught myself how to crochet. So she passed away almost a year ago in March of last year. And I finally am at the point where I wanted to honor her memory somehow. And that's when I came up with this crossover stitch, because she has crossed out of this world and crossed over into heaven. So hence the name. But plus even these colors, her favorite color in the world was just a deep pink. And she actually had a tracksuit that had these colors in it. So every single thing about this hat, the colors, the stitch, the name, everything is for my mom. And this is funny. When I finished my kind of trial hat, I sent a picture of it to my youngest daughter. And before I even told her that I was doing this in memory of my mom, she immediately wrote back and she was like, "Oh my gosh, that hat reminds me of Meemaw." That's what she called my mom. So I knew that was just absolute confirmation that I was doing the right thing. But anyway, I didn't mean to go off on all that. Just kind of that's the background and the reason for this hat. But continue your crossover stitch, all of our little hugs, all the way around. This will end a little differently. Where's my end? This will end a little differently, so I'll pick you up at the end and show you how we're going to end this row. Then we'll go quickly over the next 3 rows, 13, 14, and 15, because they're just going to be these single crochet rows. But go ahead, do your crossover stitch all the way around. I'll pick you up at the end to show you how we're going to end it, and we'll go from there. Okay, I'm coming to the end of row 12, which is our second crossover stitch row. Looks like I've got a ton of stitches left, but it's really not that many. We'll skip this stitch, and then we have 5 stitches left. So we have room for one more of our complete crossover stitches. With our 3 double crochets. I think earlier I said single crochet, but it's double. Y'all know that. With our 3 double crochets, do the crossover into that skip stitch. Grab it, pull it up, finish off your double. Now we have 2 stitches left. Well, we skipped the next one, and since we started with a skip stitch, we're just going to place a double crochet in this last stitch. That'll keep our stitch count right at 70. So at the end, we're going to slip stitch to join. If you're following my colors, I'm going to join back to gray because we're going to do these 3 rows, gray, pink, and gray of single crochet. If you're doing solid, just go ahead and slip stitch to join. I'm going to join my gray, and I'll pick you up for rows 13, 14, and 15, and we'll go over those quickly because they're just these little single crochet rows. So I'll see you then. Okay, we're on row 13. We just finished this pretty crossover hug stitch row. So the next 3 rows, 13, 14, and 15, we're just going to do 1 row each of single crochet around. I'll be switching colors from gray to pink to gray. I've already got my gray on my hook. So I'm going to go over these quickly. If you're doing a solid color, not changing with me, just do 3 rows of single crochet each stitch around. Slip stitch to join, chain 1, do it again, and do that for rows 13, 14, and 15. If you're following my color changes, row 13 is gray, single crochet each stitch around. When you slip stitch to join at the end, I'm going to switch and join to my pink, which is my middle stripe row. Then I single crochet all the way around. When I finish row 14, I'm going to switch back to gray and do it again. So 3 rows of single crochet each stitch around. Change colors each time if you're following along with me. Slip stitch to join in your first stitch, chain 1, do it again, rows 13, 14, and 15. I'll pick you up at the end of 15 just so we're on the same page and show you how things are looking. So 3 rows of single crochet each stitch around. Change colors at the end if you're going along with me, otherwise just slip stitch to join and keep going. So I'll see you for the end of row 15. Okay, I'm coming to the end of row 15, which is the third of our single crochet rows we've been doing. So I did a row of gray, a row of pink, and I'm finishing row 15 with a single crochet row in gray. Now at the end of this row, I'm going to switch back to white because we're going to start this sequence over again and do our crossover stitch row. So when I slip stitch to join here, I'm going to go back to white. Now, if you get to the end of any of these rows, these single crochet rows, and you only have like 69, don't freak out. It happens to me. It happened earlier. Just throw another one in and make it 70. It's not going to matter that much. I don't know why. Sometimes it seems to come out 69. Sometimes it seems to come out 70. It's just something I'm not going to worry about, and I don't want you to worry either. So if you get to the end of any of these single crochet rows and you only have 69, throw a second one in there and make it 70. All right, I'm going to slip stitch to join to my white, and I'm going to pick you up for row 16, where we're going to do another one of our crossover stitch rows. See you for that. Okay, we're on row 16. I've switched back to white because we're going to do another crossover stitch row. So this is our third one. You've probably got it down by now, so I'll just start you off. To begin, we skip this stitch where we normally start. We skip that slipped stitch to join stitch. We'll come back to it. And in these next 3 stitches, we do our sequence with the crossover stitch, which is the 3 double crochets, 1 in each of the next 3. Then we do our crossover stitch where we come back into that first stitch where we slip stitch to join and finish off our double crochet. You skip the next stitch and you do it again. I know by now y'all know how to do this. So do this all the way around. Your 3 double crochets, your crossover stitch in the skipped stitch prior to those double crochets. Then you skip the next stitch and do it again all the way around. And if you remember, we end this row, after you do this all the way around, you end this row with the 3 double crochets, the crossover stitch, skip a stitch, and then a double crochet in the very end. You know what? I'll pick you up at the end just to show you one more time. But do our crossover stitch sequence all the way around for row 16. I'll pick you up at the end. All right, we're coming to the end of row 16, where it was our third row of our crossover stitch. So I've got a few stitches left. We're going to skip that one, and it leaves us room for one more sequence of our crossover stitch, which again is our 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Yarn over, go into that skip stitch, grab your yarn, pull it up, finish off your double crochet. All right, we have 2 stitches left. This is the one we skip, and we're going to place a double crochet in this last stitch to end the row. If you remember, we did that last time. We'll slip stitch to join, but I'm switching back to gray because one more time we're going to repeat these 3 single crochet rows, the gray, pink, and gray. And we're getting close. We've only got a few more rows to go. So if you're doing solid, slip stitch to join and chain 1. If you're following my colors, when you slip stitch to join, change your color to your gray, and I'll pick you up for 17, 18, and 19, and we'll go over those quickly. Okay, so for 17, 18, and 19, we're repeating these 3 rows. I've already switched back to gray. So we're going to do 3 rows of single crochet in each stitch around. If you're changing colors with me, I'll do a row of gray, then a row of pink, and then a row of gray. So that's what we're going to do. Just 3 rows, rows 17, 18, and 19 of single crochet in each of our 70 stitches around. When you get to the end, slip stitch to join, change colors if you're changing, otherwise just slip stitch to join and chain 1. Do it again for row 15, for row 16, and for row 17. Single crochet all the way around. So let's do that. I'll pick you up for row 19, which will be our last row of our crossover stitch. Then we'll get into our brim. We're almost done. Okay, we're on row 20. We just finished our 3 rows of single crochet. I did mine in gray, pink, and gray. And now we're on row 20. This will be our last row of our crossover hugs like we've been doing. So I'll just start you out one more time, you know, the way we've been doing it the whole time. We skip our first stitch, then we do our crossover stitch sequence. We start it after we skip that initial slip stitch to join stitch. So I know you know how to do this, but I'm going to show you one more time. So the 3 double crochets, yarn over, go into that skip stitch, grab your yarn, pull it up, finish your double crochet. That first one's kind of hard just because that stitch is usually sort of tight. Skip your stitch, do it again. Now when we finish this row, this will be our 3rd time of doing this way, so I know you know how. We'll finish with our 3 double crochets in these 3, cross over, do it, skip that stitch, and put a double crochet in the end there. Now this is going to be the end of the hat portion. So we're going to get ready to start our brim. So I'm going to switch one more time to gray, but we're going to go down a hook size as well. So I'll just pick you up at the end of this and show you how we're going to start with our brim. So do your crossover stitch all the way around. You finish with a skip stitch and a double crochet, and I'll pick you up and show you what we're going to do from there. Okay, I'm coming to the end of row 20, which is the 4th row of our crossover and hug stitch. And it's the 3rd row where we've done it with this type of ending. So I'm at the end. I've got a few stitches left. I'm going to skip this one. This is exactly like how we did it last time. But I'm going to show you one more time. So our 3 double crochets. Surely by now, I hope that y'all have gotten used to doing this crossover stitch because it can be very awkward with just how you have to do all that. But we work our crossover stitch. Okay, so now we have 2 stitches left. We skip that one. We place a regular double crochet in this final stitch. All right, so that's the end of our hat portion. When we slip stitch to join, I'm going to switch back to gray for one more row. I'm also going to go down to a 5.0 millimeter hook. So let's go ahead and slip stitch to join, and I'll pick you up for our brim. All right, we're on row 21. I've switched back to my gray yarn just for one more row. I've also gone down to a 5.0 millimeter hook. I did the hat in a 6.0, and I always like to go down a half to a whole hook size for my brim. I probably would have used a 5.5, but I broke it, so I've gone down to a 5.0. So all we're going to do to start our brim, or the very tail end of the hat, I guess, is a single crochet in each stitch around. And I'm doing it in gray, and it's just to kind of separate this last crossover stitch row from the actual brim, which I'm going to do in pink. So super simple, one single crochet, in each stitch around. We still should have 70 at this point. If you come up with 69, it's not going to matter because all we're going to do is our brim. So one single crochet, each stitch around. When I get to the end, I'm rejoining to my pink because the remainder of my brim is going to be in the pink. Single crochet all the way around, slip stitch to join, change colors if that's what you're doing, and I'll pick you up to show you how we're going to do our very easy and very pretty brim. See you for that. Okay, we are coming to the end of our hat. We're on row 22 and we're on our brim. I've switched back to my pink after our row of single crochet here. So the brim I'm choosing to do, I'll show you, is this. It's front and back post, half double crochet, crazy stretchy, holds its shape, and I think it just goes with the rest of the hat. So this is the brim I'm going to be showing you how to do. There's other types you can do. A lot of people, and I a lot of the times do, the single crochet back loop only, where you work up and down. It's very time consuming, but it's a beautiful brim. I just chose this one because I think it goes better with the hat. So to start this type of brim, for the very first row of the brim, all we do is a double crochet in each stitch around. So all the way around, one double crochet in each stitch. Now after this row, we'll do several rows of alternating front post double crochet and back post double crochet. And how many rows of that you do is completely your choice. It depends on how wide you want your brim to be. I think in the one I just showed you, following this row, I think I did 3 rows of the front and back post double crochets. So go ahead, do a row of regular double crochet all the way around. We're going to finish out the brim in this color, so no more switching colors. Double crochet all the way around, slip stitch to join, chain 1, and I'll come back and show you how we're going to do the final rows of our brim. Okay, here we are on the final part of our brim. We've done our row of double crochet, and which is going to be the base for the rest of our brim, because we're going to do alternating front post double crochet and back post double crochet. So that's why we had to do this row, to give something to go in and out of. So all you do, I'm going to start with the front post double crochet. You go around the post, not through the stitch. You go under the post, grab your yarn, pull it up, and work a double crochet. I'm sure most of y'all already know how to do this. The back post, same thing, but you go in from the back around that post, grab your yarn, pull it up, and work your double crochet. Let's do it again. Front post, like here's the regular stitch we normally go under, and this is the post. You go under that post in the front, grab your yarn, pull it up, work your double crochet. Back post, still working in this post, you go in from the back, up and around that post, grab your yarn, pull it up, and work your double crochet. So we're going to do that all the way around. We'll alternate front post double crochet, and then the next stitch will be a back post double crochet. We'll alternate this all the way around our row. When we get to the end, we'll slip stitch to join, and then we're going to do it again. Now on the remaining rows, and again, I'm going to do this one plus 2 more. You can do as many as you want to get your brim as wide as you want. We're going to repeat it exactly as is. Front post on top of front post, back post on top of back post, and that'll give us that ribbed look. So alternate your front post double crochet and back post double crochet all the way around. Slip stitch to join, chain one, do it again. Front post, back post, front post, back post, all the way around. As many rows as you'd like. Again, total of these alternating, I'm going to do 3. And I will see you when I'm finished with my brim, and we'll look at our hat. So I'll see you then. Okay, here is our finished hat. I really love this hat for a lot of reasons, mainly because it's for my mom. I hope you enjoyed learning a new stitch, the crossover stitch. I just think it's so cute, our little hug stitch, and I think the colors work really well. I think having the stripes really set off these rows of the crossover stitch, and then we have our nice brim. This hat's very versatile because you can have any color combination, and I think it would work beautifully. Or you can do a solid. Hope you can see that. I'm kind of close up. But here it is in a solid, and I think it looks very, very, very nice. It could even work well for a man's hat in this solid color. But this is the hat we made. I love it. If any of y'all want to discuss, your journey with Alzheimer's, or if you've been through it, if you're going through it now, I know the stresses that it causes. Feel free to contact me in the comments. I'd be happy to talk to you a little bit about it. Anyway, here's the hat. Glad you joined with me today to make this. And if you like it, please share this tutorial with all of your crochet friends. Also, hit subscribe so you always get notified when the next tutorial gets posted, because there's always more to come. Until next time, happy hooking.